Okay, board manager Pistorius had to leave, so myself, board manager Belger will take over at this time. Board managers have concluded the closed session on the country club property sale and confined disposal facility, litigation and mediation, preparation and reopen this regular board meeting of the Shell Rock River Watershed District. Next on the agenda is item number 7, project program manager Courtney Phillips.
Thank you. The first item I have is resolution 2022-05 award contractor for IC&E seating. This IC&E seating, the seed has already been purchased by the district. We were working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to potentially get that seeded. They are down some staff right now, and so they reached out to us if we could have a contractor seed the property and also prep the site bed as well as do some spraying and mowing. And so we solicited 3 different quotes from local contractors. We did receive 3 back. And so if there's a first and a second, I will read the resolution awarding the contractor and stating the prices.
Is there a motion to introduce resolution 2022-05?
So moved.
Board contractor, okay, made by manager Masuski, second by manager Hanson. Courtney, would you please read the resolution?
Yes. Resolution 2022-05 quote award for project number 2020-05 IC&E wetland seeding. Whereas the Shell Rock River Watershed District Board of Managers pursues the mission of implementing reasonable and necessary improvements to the water related and other natural resources within its boundaries. Whereas the Shell Rock River Watershed District is charged with implementing the Shell Rock River Watershed District Watershed Management Plan. Whereas the project area needs to be established and planted with native forbs and grasses. Whereas on April 13th, 2021, the district established the IC&E Wetland Enhancement Project by Resolution 2021-06. Whereas a request for quotes was sent out April 13th, 2022. And whereas 3 quotes were submitted to the district ranging from $23,270 to $30,940. Therefore, the Board of Managers hereby finds that the proposed project has the ability to promote the public interest and welfare in conformity with the plan as set forth above. Now therefore be it resolved that the Shell Rock River Watershed District hereby, Section 1, awards the contract to Conservation Landscape LLC as the lowest quote and in the best interest of the district for the IC&E wetland seeding. And Section 2 authorizes the district administrator to sign all documents to proceed with the project. Dated May 10th, 2022.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Pasuski,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Belger,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Bakken.
Aye. Resolution passes.
Thank you. The next item is resolution 2022-06, the Side Sands Outdoor Heritage Council, which is LSOHC funding application. Request for the application or RFPs to submit an application was submitted put out late last month. Unfortunately, due to the timing of when the grants are due and when our board meetings are we don't have a final application to distribute for everyone, but just letting you know, we're planning on doing about 7 different projects being funded through our phase 12 proposal for our habitat restoration program. We have a lot of stream and river restorations, 2 acquisitions that are planned. One of the biggest things that we're going to be trying to get funding for this year is to do some restoration of the channel between Albert Lee Lake, there's Fountain Lake Dam and Albert Lee Lake. We're looking at working with the city and doing some restoration in that area. Right now, it's looking like we'll apply for roughly $4.4 million worth of funding for this phase 12 application. So if there's any other questions, I can get a first and second reading resolution.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
By Manager Kramer, second by Manager Hanson. Courtney, please read the resolution.
Resolutions 2022-06 Shell Rock River Watershed District LSOHC grant application. Be it resolved that the Shell Rock River Watershed District hereinafter referred to as applicant acts as legal sponsor for the Shell Rock River Watershed Habitat Restoration Program Phase 12 contained in the Side Sands Outdoor Heritage Council application to be submitted on May 26, 2022, and Be it further resolved that the applicant is hereby authorized to apply to the LSOHC hereinafter referred to as state for funding of intended projects on behalf of the applicant. Be it further resolved that the applicant has the legal authority to apply for financial assistance and the institutional, managerial, and financial capability to ensure adequate acquisition, maintenance, and protection of the intended projects. Be it further resolved that the applicant has not incurred any construction costs or has not entered into any written agreements to purchase property for intended projects. Be it further resolved that the applicant has not violated any federal, state, or local laws pertaining to fraud, bribery, graft, kickbacks, collusions, conflict of interest, or other unlawful or corrupt practice. Be it further resolved that upon approval of the application by the state, the applicant may enter into agreement with the state for the above referenced projects, and that the applicant certifies that it will comply with all applicable laws and regulations as stated in the contract agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that Andy Henschel, District Administrator for the Shell Rock River Watershed District, is hereby authorized to execute such agreements as are necessary to implement the intended projects on behalf of the applicant dated May 10th, 2022.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Bestuski,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Delger,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Vaca.
Aye. Resolution passes.
Thank you. The next item is a motion to extend option agreements for the Pickerel Lake property. These are two different option agreements. What we're doing is we're matching the end terms on the option agreements to match the end terms of our grant funding. It just makes it easier. This project wasn't necessarily delayed. It's just the seller who is interested in selling wants to retain some of the property, and so another survey has to be completed before the appraisal can be done. And things, just getting the survey and the appraisal, all that takes a couple of months periods of time. And currently the end date was June 30th of this month, or sorry, of this year. And so we're just looking to extend the timeline a little bit. The seller is still interested in selling his property. It's just sometimes it takes a little bit to do all the appropriate steps that are required by our granting authority to complete acquisition projects.
So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Manager Hanson. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Manager Bestuski. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Bestuski,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Delger,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Vaca.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. Item D is a motion to approve a change order for ISG. The reason for this ISG change order is because of our One Watershed, One Plan planning efforts. So this is just strictly for the planning portion of our grant that we received funds for. If you remember, we originally applied or got the contract with Respec for our One Watershed, One Plan work. They unfortunately lost some staff that moved to ISG. And so then we moved our contract with from Respec to ISG to complete the One Watershed, One Plan. As a result, there was some additional costs. So they are bringing a change order to us of $22,890.50. We do have grant funding able to cover this cost for our consultants. So it's nothing that the district is going to be covering out of pocket. It's all grant funded to complete the planning of the water plan.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
By Manager Kramer, do I have a second?
Second.
By Manager Bestuski. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call roll?
Manager Bestuski,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Delger,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Vaca.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. The last is item E, which is just an update for our One Watershed, One Plan. We have now completed the One Watershed, One Plan, which is great. On April 27th, the Bowser full board, because I went to a Southern Regional Committee first, and it was approved for recommendation to the full board. So on April 27th, the full Bowser board approved or adoption of the plan. And so what that means is now that Bowser is adopted, each of the local planning entities, which again is Freeport County, the Watershed District, the SWCD, and the City of Alberta, has 120 days locally to adopt the plan. And so we are looking at our next board meeting that we will have this on the agenda for adoption. After that, and all of the entities enter into it, we then will be working with Bowser to get funding to implement the projects that are identified in our comprehensive watershed plan. And that's known as watershed-based implementation funding. What also will be coming is memorandum of agreements and bylaws to kind of create the framework for how the entities will work together once those funds are established. So upcoming, you'll be seeing more documents regarding to the grant agreement with Bowser for implementing those funds. And a reminder, the Shell Rock is going to still be the day-to-day and fiscal holder of the watershed-based implementation funding for those projects.
Any more questions for Courtney? Now we'll move on to item 8, technical specialist Scott Christensen.
Well, first up, I have a feasibility study update. Notice in your agenda packet, a concept map completed by ISG. This is just a general overview of what the engineering firm has decided would be best bang for a buck on this project. We are essentially creating a 180-acre wetland complex on a wildlife management area near the state line border, south central Fremont County. This will essentially create between 180 and 270 acre feet of water retained on this wetland complex throughout the year. And if the management plan proceeds as intended, this will turn into a soil moisture management unit, which creates beneficial habitat for shorebird and wading bird species, as well as waterfowl. If we flood it out during the spring and again in the fall, that would double the acre feet of water retained from County Ditch 55, which is a fairly large drainage system. I believe it's the largest drainage system in the Shell River watershed. So it's potentially creating 360 to 540 acre feet of water retained on state lands. We'll be looking to hopefully do construction out there next year if it's dry enough. It's pretty wet out there, and it's just an update on what the engineers came back with. Anybody have any questions?
This is the area they call Grass Lake, right?
Yep.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Dominated by reed canary grass, which is an invasive species. It's a rhizomatous plant, so it builds up a really thick mat of sod and it outcompetes native plant species. So just looking to flood that out and bring back some of the native species. And item C is a resolution 2020-07 Conservation Partners Legacy funding application. Overview of this is to perform continued maintenance on Chalk River watershed property, Wedge Creek along Highway 13, keeping the invasive reed canary grass and buckthorn under control as a continued maintenance project for this area. Motion to read it.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Manager Hanson, second by Manager Pursuski.
Yeah, we're a team today.
Please read the resolution, Scott.
Resolution 2020-2022-07 Chalk River Watershed District CPL grant application. Be it resolved that the Chalk River Watershed District, hereinafter referred to as applicant, acts as legal sponsor for the Wedge Creek Vegetation Management Reach 1, contained in the Conservation Partners Legacy CPL application to be submitted on May 9, 2022, and be it further resolved that the applicant is hereby authorized to apply to the CPL hereinafter referred to a state for funding of intended projects on behalf of the applicant. Be it further resolved that the applicant has the legal authority to apply for financial assistance and the institutional, managerial, and financial capability to ensure adequate acquisition, maintenance, and protection of the intended projects. Be it further resolved that the applicant has not incurred any construction costs or has not entered into any rent agreements, purchase property for intended projects. Be it further resolved that the applicant has not violated any federal, state, or local laws pertaining to fraud, bribery, graft, kickbacks, collusions, conflict of interest, or other unlawful or corrupt practice. Be it further resolved that upon approval of the application by the state, the applicant may enter into an agreement with the state for the above referenced projects, and that the applicant certifies that it will comply with all applicable laws and regulations as stated in the contract agreement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Andy Henschel, District Administrator for the Shell Rock River Watershed District, is hereby authorized to execute such agreements as are necessary to implement intended projects on behalf of the applicant dated May 10, 2022.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Leo, please call roll.
Manager Besuski,
Aye.
Manager Kramer,
Aye.
Manager Delger,
Aye.
Manager Hanson,
Aye.
Manager Vaca.
Aye. Resolution passes. Thank you. Yep. Item 9, are there any manager items?
I guess my only comment on the Red Lakes situation down there is, I mean, let's declare an emergency here for those gentlemen and see if we can do something for them, because
They will appreciate that.
yeah, it's thousands of dollars was cost.
Sounds good to me.
I have a procedure question. At county board, we don't read resolutions every time we introduce them. Is it a requirement that we do it at the watershed district?
Transparency.
I see.
We will start roll call. Yep, but then not everybody that's watching it on Facebook sees that or understands it, so the more we are giving more information, that's why I asked for roll call, so people can hear what's going on.
Okay. It's not required.
Commented on Transparency Act. Anyway, no more manager items. Upcoming meetings are Fisher opener. I suppose everybody's going fishing. And the next one is June 14th, our board meeting. And the annual lake cleanup is still undetermined. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second. I didn't get to. You did.